he talks about that so much. I mean, there's five, but the number one, which is fear, the primary reason, the primary reason between how a rich person thinks and how a poor person thinks is how they manage fear. He's not saying that it's not like they don't have fear. It's just how you manage fear. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, the thing I love about what he was talking about, and I actually started chuckling to myself because I lived in Texas for over a year. And if any of you have read this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki talks to his rich dad, and his rich dad talks about how much he loves Texans because they go big.
Yeah.
Not only they go big in wins, but they go big in failures. They actually tell people about their failure, and then they morph their failure into a win, right?
Yeah.
He was talking about the Alamo and how the Alamo was the biggest loss of the military there in Texas. And now they have this saying, remember the Alamo, and they have a landmark that creates millions of dollars for them in revenue a year for that city.
Yeah, he said you wouldn't be, I don't know exactly the words he used, but you wouldn't want to be embarrassed and say, I went poor over a duplex. Right?
Yeah.
You want to get broke after a huge asset, right?
Mhm.
Besides that. So yeah, go big or go home, right? That's what he said. He also talks about um, professional golfers. All great golfers have lost many golf balls, in their course to becoming a great golfer, right? They're not afraid to do it. They know that if they lost a tournament, if they lost golf balls in the woods, they keep going. They keep striving to be the best. I love the falling off the bike example that he gives, right? So I've got kids, and if you got kids or have kids or no kids, and if you're teaching a child how to ride a bike, well, if they fall a little bit or they don't do it the right way, get back up and keep going, right? We've all been there. If we all can ride a bike, hopefully, right? If you can ride a bike, go back to the time you started. You fell off a bunch of times before you did it. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. For me, it's this. Um, I actually like losing on certain situations, small losses, because for me, it gets me one step closer to figuring it out and getting it right.
One of the things he says is he says winning means being unafraid to lose, right? Winning means being unafraid to lose. And I think the way that I've kind of mentally shifted this in my own mind is that to me, not having my freedom number met by a certain time frame means that I lose freedom. And I am more afraid of losing freedom than I am of taking the risk. And, I think that agents, as real estate agents, when you move into a full commission business, you're betting on yourself, right? How many of you are betting on yourself right now? And I know we have a lot of people online that would raise their hand. And what happens when you bet on yourself is winning and losing is fully in your control. And then knowing that there is a freedom number that you want to get to, that by getting to that freedom number, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. Yes, Gary Keller, right? That is more fearful for me right now. I've made such a shift in that mindset. I would say in the last 6 months, that has become more, I'm more afraid of not hitting that number by the time I want to hit it than of what I need to do to get there.
Yeah, Becky, he says that the main reason that 90% of people fail is because they play not to lose.
Correct.
They play it safe. Those are the exact words he says. That's the main, I'm going to say it again because I think it's a very powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
The main reason that 90% of people fail is because they play not to lose. So worried about losing, right?
He says it on page 209. So for those of you that have the book, go to page 209, and it's in the middle of the page. He says, winning means being unafraid to lose. They hate losing, so they know that losing will only inspire them to become better. There is a big difference between hating losing and being afraid to lose. Most people are so afraid of losing money that they lose anyway. They go broke over a duplex, Adrian. Financially, they play life too small. too safe. They buy big houses, big cars, but not big investments. The main reason that 90% of American public struggles financially is because they play not to lose. They don't play to win.
Right.
And he used the example of back in the 50s during the nuclear crisis, where all these people went out and spent money on these underground bunkers. He said if they would have just taken that money and invested it back in the 50s, they'd be multimillionaires right now.
Right.
I love
Right. So fear is the biggest one, and we could go all day about that. And then there's four others. The other ones are cynicism, right? Being a skeptic. The words that a skeptic might say, or a cynicistic, I don't even know how to say that, right? A person that's having cynicism.
A cynicistic person. I don't know that's a word.
I just made that up, right? I just made that up. So a word that they might say is, that will never work. What if this? What if that? Sky's falling mentality. That's a cynic. There we go. I hear a lot of times, again, I'm going to say this because I hear this, right? I flip a lot of houses, and I hear people say all the time. I've had neighbors come up to me and say, I was going to buy that house. I was going to do that. I'm like, yeah. And you knew it before I did, didn't you? You didn't do it. Why not? Right. So I hear, it's so funny because reading the book, you hear the language from the people. So that's the one thing that held them back. Right. And then there's laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. And so those are the five: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. When I hear arrogance, I think that's another one up there that I hear a lot. It's that people are unwilling to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do that, or I'm too good for that. I get that, or I don't need to know that, or all those kind of. There's like a wall up when I hear the arrogance part. It's a wall, right? When you're talking to someone and there's a wall up, there's arrogance behind that. It's actual fear too, if you really think about it, because they're afraid of someone thinking that they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, that's it. They're afraid of, so it's just like kind of like when, as real estate agents, when we go and we talk with buyers, and buyers are so afraid for us to know that they really don't know about the process, or even a seller. They're so afraid of letting their barrier drop. But if they would just open themselves up freely and allow the real estate agent to educate them, they would end up at the end so much more wealthier, or either making more money on that home or selling it faster. They'll be educated on it, right? And then we ourselves are that same way when it comes to this investment material and this discussion around the fact of just saying, hey, I don't know what I don't know.
Right. Now, if you can, when you're in situations of potentially investing in something or making those decisions, I think that's the best thing to do is go to these five and say, am I in one of these states?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So is that what's holding me back? That's the best way to think about it. So if you see something in front of you for a glimpse, you say to yourself, that could be a good deal. And then does fear set in? Are there the what ifs with cynicism? What if this? Well, what if I do it? And then and then all of a sudden you're consumed by that.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it laziness? I don't feel like doing that. It sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to, and then there's the excuses with the laziness. I don't know somebody that can help me with that. The roof's caving in. I don't know a good roofer. To me, that's laziness, because you can find out who that good roofer is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can find out who to help you. That's easy in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Put a post up on our private page, and in 2 seconds you have a bunch of answers. To me, that's the easiest way. Yeah. And then there's bad habits. What do bad habits mean?
Well, I think that bad habits is it's kind of the example that he used, which was, hey, I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. One guy says, well, I need to go to the gym. And the other guy says, he was just born that way. Let's go have a beer.
Right. Right. And it's
Right?
funny because they all kind of intertwine if you think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
they could say that, and then there's the cynicism of what if. They're all almost, they all are the same kind of thing if you think about it, and they're all driven by fear. Everyone's driven by fear, the number one.
You know, the exciting thing about all of this for me, and I'm going to ask, so you guys, if you would just think a little bit about those 5, and I'd love to hear from one of you about, if you are willing to be vulnerable, about which of these 5 you feel like impacts yourself in moving forward in this. But before that, one of the things I love about this is we all know the 80-20 rule, right? What's the 80-20 rule? 20% will do it, 80% won't, or 20% of your effort gets you 80% of your results, right? So the cool thing about this investment stuff, guys, is that basically only 20% are going to take advantage of it. When you think about how many investment deals are in the world today or in your local market today, understanding that really only 20% actually will take advantage and take a step, and it's probably less than that, right, Adrian? Will actually take a step and move forward to take advantage of a great investment opportunity. Look at how much abundance is there for you.
Becky,
right?
you're so right. I mean, I teach that flip class for FES,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have sometimes 100 people in the class. And after the class, I say, here's my phone number, here's my email. If you find a good deal, here's what it looks like. Here's the criteria that you need to find. Email me if you want a second opinion. Only 1, maybe 2 I ever hear from again out of 100. And I say, well, why are you here taking this class? That's how I actually start the class. I say, why are you here taking the class? Like, what are you going to do about it? Like, if you learned everything that you want to learn today, then what? What's next?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. It's just up to you. And the only things that stop the people from doing it are one of these 5 things: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance. And it's usually fear.
It's
right?
usually fear of the unknown, right? Fear of
Yep.
not having certainty.
Yeah, if you're going into, here's the thing you got to think about, which makes sense. If you're going into an area that's unknown, right? It's like you're going into a cave. You're going to a cave where there's no light. Think about that. You're going into a cave where there's no light, and you don't know which way to walk. You don't know if you should go left, go right, go straight, go down, go up. You don't know. So you're fearful of which direction to go. That's how the mindset is when you go into a new thing that you don't know. Like, I'm going to go build a house, or I'm going to go buy a property to get rent from. If you've never gone there before, you don't know the path. The cool thing is there's people that can help you guide the way.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to ask. And then once you ask and then you find out that way, then are you going to keep going? Because you still have your blinders on. That's how it feels. It's like that game where you put the blinders on and someone's leading you. Remember that in Bold?
Mm-hmm.
Put the blinders on, and then
the trust walk. It was the trust walk.
Yeah, the trust walk. So that's, to me, how it is that you got the blinders on because you haven't been there. Because if you had been there, then you have the blinders off. So if you got the blinders on and someone's pulling you, look, this is the way. This is the way. I'm telling you, follow me. We're going to go left. Okay, here we go. We're going left. And then the people that don't take action are the people that go, I can't do it. And they let go. I can't do it. I can't go any further.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust that you're leading me in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so many things are about betting on yourself, right? Like, I think about back 15 months ago, whenever and some of you on here from Vermont, you were with me, I think sometimes we don't take a step until we're in so much pain of where we are that we have no other choice. Like, for me, moving down here and taking over as the team leader for Keller Williams Naples, it was going to work no matter what, because I was in so much pain where I was. There was no way it wasn't going to work there. And so when you bet on yourself, it's like awesome. It's so awesome, because you don't know what you're capable of until you just do it. You just step off and do it. And I think this investment thing is the same way. I know that's what my husband and I are experiencing right now, because this is something completely outside of what he's ever done. He's never done anything like this. Work at, work at FedEx for 25 years, he worked for the same person. He's in that grind. He's in that middle class grind, which is exactly what, Robert Kiyosaki talks about. And this is forcing us to think differently. But when you're in so much pain where you are and you want to get to the other side, you're willing to take the chance. So go ahead, Zach. I want to hear from some of you guys about this. What are your thoughts, ahas, or would you like to share where you think you lie in these 5 reasons for not stepping forward?
Well, where would this fall in? Because I think what's at times held me back is I've always, I don't know if say I'm an outside thinker, but it's the criticism part, the people around you, where you're thinking probably light years or just multiple steps, and then you're almost scared to bring that forward for the feedback you're going to get back. I mean, does that fall into fear?
Yeah, and cynicism. Another thing that they say is, well, why? Another comment he says in the book is, why hasn't someone else done that before you? Well, if it's so good, why hasn't someone else done it? When you hear that, that's exactly that category.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Zach, you have a lot of people around you, and we all do, that you can get other opinions of that have done it. Because I also know this, that there's people in life that want to hold you back, not intentionally, but it's because they're fearful.
Mm-hmm.
They have a fear. So the only way of them kind of coping with the situation is they're grabbing onto you and holding you back, and don't do that. That's too risky. That's too this, that's too that. So they're grabbing onto you, and they're putting a chain on your leg, pulling you back because they're afraid.
Yeah.
It's because they're afraid, Zach. It's not because they're trying to hurt you. Right? I don't think that those people in our life are trying to hurt us. It's because they're afraid of doing those steps, and you're not at that point. And so that's that tension. That's where that gap is because they're still clinging on for the fear, and you're now breaking away, and they're pulling you back.
Oh, I see it. There's steps I'm making, like the metal business. You guys may see some posts and stuff like that on that, where I'm just being transparent. Like family members I have, I took big risks, back before the crash. Things were going great, circumstances happen, and then I'm getting well, here he goes again. And I'm getting that from all over, like, here he goes again. And it's like, as much as you try to shut those walls down, it's like you feel it. I mean, I think it's, yeah,
Well, they want to protect you, right?
recognizing, like what you said, why, which I haven't really pointed out as much in my own head.
Zach,
I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Do you want, because there was one sentence that Robert says that sticks out. It says the main reason that 90% of people fail is because they play not to lose.
Yes. One of the things that Zach, I share that same thing with you because I'm a very adventurous, risk-taking kind of personality, which is, admittedly, I've kind of fell on my face more than I've won, right? Because I took risk and adventure, but I didn't know what I was doing, right? Not understanding and having the right people around you to guide you. And so I don't know if this is helpful to you, but one of the things is my husband actually was one of those people who loves me very, very much, but he's risk adverse, or I'm telling you now, he's like Mr. Risky, right? But what we did is we started reading this together. And actually, he started listening to it and he started understanding my language. So I don't know if that helps, if it's a person that's close in. Amanda Fenning said to you, Zach, she said, yes, I see and deal with that every day, what you're talking about. And Diane Vila, she said, I was that person, right? I was that person.
I love that. It's like a shift. I was that person. Behind, right? Left that behind. That's a shift in mindset right there.
Yeah. It's awesome. And when you make that shift, and Zach, I know what you're talking about because I kind of went through that as well. I was investing before the crash myself, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up with 3 foreclosures, right? And and went through some tough financial times for about 7 or 8 years after the crash. We've talked about this, right?
Mhm.
And so I think the difference is we're wiser now, we're smarter, we know what to do, we know how to make good decisions. And I go back to page 212 in Rich Dad Poor Dad. You guys go back to page 212, and I read this story, and maybe it's a story you can share with people. I love it because it really, you just kind of like, you don't want that to be you. But he talks about this friend that he found a duplex for, and he's not a real estate agent, so he put this friend with an agent. The price was $42,000 for a 2-bedroom townhome, and similar units were going for $65,000. This guy was all on it. He put a contract in on it. He was going to buy it. And 2 weeks later, the agent called Robert Kiyosaki and told Robert that his friend had backed out. And when he called his friend said he talked to his neighbor, and his neighbor told him it was a bad deal, that he was paying too much. And Richard asked him if his neighbor was an investor, and he said he was not. And he said, well, why'd you listen to him? And he said he got defensive and said he just wanted to keep looking.
Arrogance.
And 2 years later, arrogance, that was arrogance, right?
Yep.
And 2 years later, the unit was renting for $2,500 in peak season, and it was worth $95,000.
Yeah, if you're listening to the words, you hear one of the 5 things. If you're listening to the things that people are saying to you, look at those 5 things. It will fall under one of those 5 things, for sure. Zach, the one thing we know, I know you know this, is that if you pick any successful person that you know, and you look at their history, right, where they've come from, it wasn't a easy path. It wasn't an overnight success. It was a rocky road of dips and peaks, and then plateaus, and then dips again. There's this thing that it's funny what comes up on your news feed. It's like, they're always watching and listening to you. This thing came up. I don't know if you can see it. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
I see it. Yeah.
It says what people think success looks like. And then there's this sweet, easy, gradual incline path to a flag at the end. And then it says what it really looks like. And then there's a guy or just a person. And then he's about to fall in a pit. And then there's another tightrope. And then there's another pit with water in it and probably alligators. And then there's another pit with storms. That's the reality right there.
Yeah, 2008 was the water in the pit and the alligators.
Yeah. It's a rocky road.
Throw
right?
some piranhas and sharks in there too. Can you repost that?
Yeah. I'll post it on our page, and if you guys, and it's cool because I think I'm gonna buy this. It's a canvas print you can buy, and I'm gonna buy it. I saw it over the week. I'm like, man, that is so good. It's so simple. I'm gonna put it right behind me right here.
I want that too. I want that for in my house and in my office.
Yeah, it's true though, right? It's just recognizing the reality of the situation, that it's not just this gradual incline of smooth and no problems. It's filled with problems, filled with pits, and that's okay, right? That's okay. That's what it is.
The interesting thing I see, guys, and then we'll shut this down because it's 9 o'clock. Is I want to tell you about this. Is that so? This time every year, we get into spring break, right? And Morgan and I laugh about this. Morgan is my assistant team leader. We laugh about this because starting in March, we get inundated with Keller Williams agents from all over the country that want to come visit with us because they want to move to Naples and start selling real estate in Naples. I mean, inundated. This was last year. And up until the pandemic started, and even after the pandemic, getting phone calls. And then this year, we've had, I would say 40, 50 in the last 2 years that we've either met with by phone or who've actually physically come to our office. We've had one make the move. One. And
by the way,
did
same thing in Marco Island, Becky, just so you know. It's like nonstop.
And he did it. And his business quadrupled. It was unbelievable what happened with his business. And it's so interesting because I think investing is the same way. That's an investment into yourself and making a move to get freedom. I'm so excited. So great to see all of you. Adrian, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. How
Yes,
many of
have a
you would
great day.
love to have an operating principal like that? He is awesome.
Come
He
on,
is
come on,
awesome.
go crazy.
He,
All right, I'm
he
going.
hates it when I do that, so I'm doing it. All right, because it's my show, so I can. All right, guys, you have an amazing day. We'll see you right here tomorrow morning at 8:30. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.